Right, so a funny thing has happened for the second time today. So I'm historically have been someone who uses modelling alongside valve amps. For a while I've kind of thought that valve amps tended to be more fun when you're in the room with them, but for certain things I don't really think you can beat a modeler. So if you're trying to record a part, like I am quite a lot of the time, or if you've got to switch sounds between, you know, a vast array of different bits and pieces, for me a modeler has long been a great recording tool as well as being something that I could use live. also the way that the live music world works for me now, playing functions and stuff, oftentimes the sound, people won't necessarily want you to have much stage volume at all, even though you're playing next to an incredibly loud drummer, and they're expecting you to be quite quiet on stage. And in that scenario as well, I feel like the tube amp, the valve amp, has been something that for me felt like a bit of a wasted potential in some ways. But what has happened recently is I took this around to David Beebe's house and we had a little jam. He has a Morgan AC20 and I've always wanted to try that amp, but as it turned out, we ended up just jamming all day, and all I ended up using was the Catalyst. He was using the FM3 into a Laney LFR cab, 2 cabs I think he spread them out across the room and made himself feel big. Although for me the Morgan AC20 had been an amp that I'd wanted to try for quite a while, one of those amps that is modelled in the Fractal world, and it's one of my favourite models on there. Whilst I was actually just playing guitar, I was finding the Catalyst so pleasing to play that I wasn't even really thinking about that real valve amp that was sat in the room and didn't even plug into it, which I wasn't, if you told me that would be what happened when someone put a Line 6 Catalyst in front of me, I'm not sure that I would have thought that would be the case, because it's a modelling amp, right? Then today I went round Jake's house. Now Jake, as you know, has that very, very pretty 2-Rock SSS, the Steel String Singer clone, an incredible amp. And I think a lot of you folks enjoyed when that was on the channel. Maybe I'll get it back on again. An incredible amp, incredibly expensive, but you know, a really great sounding amp. And he also has the 2-Rock traditional clean. But the same thing happened again. I didn't really feel like I was missing anything, and I didn't feel like I wanted to plug into that amp more than I wanted to check this out. And I was just trying to enjoy playing guitar. And the thing is that the clean channel and the boutique channel on this, to me, are pretty much as good as any clean channel that I've got, and certainly are more controllable. You know, I've got Mesa Boogie amps in here. I've got an Orange Rocker Verb. I've got a Mark 1, a Mark 3, you know, Mesa Boogie Nomad, these bits and pieces. But, you know, if I had to take an amp to a little jam like that, and even if I'm in the room with a more expensive amp, it's not something that I'm particularly worried about. And I've asked David and I've asked Jake, how do you think that sounds? And they both thought that it sounds really good, like surprisingly so. So I'd encourage you to try one in a store or something, because I don't know how well this stuff comes across. I can just say my experience with it. I wasn't necessarily expecting that this would become a thing that I'd use totally often, but in the cases where I'm using it, I'm kind of being really surprised by how much I just want to play the guitar when I plug into that clean channel. You know, and you've got a nice reverb and a nice delay on there. I'm keeping it simple. I'm not using like the crazy pitch effects or anything. And I personally wasn't finding that I was lacking volume. Now the 2-Rock is incredibly touch responsive, and so the louder Jake plays, the louder that gets. So Jake could be really loud if he wanted to be when we were playing, but you know, I could turn this up onto the 100-watt version if I wanted to get really pokey with things. And you know, you're then getting quite loud. Now, I've had one person on the channel say that they didn't find that it was loud enough for gigging. I don't know if they hear still SRV. Let people know what you were using it for and how. So I would think maybe that for that extra headroom and stuff, you may want to consider the Catalyst 200. But for me, the kind of gigs that I do, I wouldn't be allowed to be louder than this amp is able to get. I don't think, you know, it can certainly get very loud. So I don't know, maybe we're even going to have a patch now where, since it's getting difficult apparently to get new valves or new tubes, don't actually think you need to replace tubes as much as some people are keen to do. I've had the same tubes in an amp for sort of 10 years or more. So unless it's chewing up tubes, then in which case you've probably got something wrong anyway. I don't think you necessarily need to replace them as often as people or some people seem to think you do. Let me know your comments on how often you feel like you need to replace tubes. You can get an orange tube tester as well, and that can sort of point out tubes that are on their wear or broken. So I think there may be a thing there, but if we're going to have a period where it's very difficult to get replacement tubes, then maybe something like this. This is a £330 amp, and I could say that I could happily gig this, and I think I'd be inclined to take out some pedals with it. Maybe I'll put together a little intro now doing it, but I just wanted to kind of follow up and sort of just give that experience that I played it twice now with other people, and their experience was kind of the same as me. It's like, okay, that just sounds like a good amp. Like it's got big round, if that's what you're looking for, that's what I kind of dialed in here. It's not. You know, that's not going to come across very well in the video because it's loud. We can engage the boost if we want. But I just think it sounds pretty much great. Now, I'm not so sure necessarily that if you're kind of doing heavier stuff that this might be the same experience for you. Let me know as well on that. But I feel like for clean, voxy type stuff, edge or breakup stuff, this for me is a really beautiful sounding amp. You know, and it's got enough headroom where you can get some really fun stuff out of this, and I think enough for gigging. It's got that XLR as well, so this was another thing I said, you could get something like a Torpedo Captor X to get that silent stage thing going on, or you know, to try and get your amp recorded, or you could just get something like this for the same price. And this for me is way more fun and something that I could use on stage 100%, something that I could take away as an interface and record with. So for me, the Catalyst, I think, presents a pretty good value proposition. Something like the Boss Katana as well could do this job, of course, but it's just the case that I've wanted to share that experience with the Catalyst, which I have bought with my own money. So yeah, there's that. I'll put together an intro now. But it's been really, really fun to get to know this amp a little bit. And for me, I've got the bass here at about 7.5, the mids at halfway, the treble dialed back to about 10 o'clock, the presence at about 10 o'clock, channel volume up about 8, and then the master volume, I think I've got about 11 o'clock, but I'm just in that 0.5 watt mode. And if I wanted that louder for kind of gigging volume, I could take it up to the 50 watt or the 100 watt. But it really is doing the job, I think, of sounding like a good amp, which is great in my opinion. Thank you for stopping by. If you want to like and subscribe, you could. I'll catch you in another video soon. Cheers.